You just write a book. Welcome to the Supper Club. My name is Joe Fresta, and I'll be your host. The Supper Club, brought to you by
Mercy, transforming the health of our communities.
Kuna Food Service, a family-owned tradition since 1918. Lordo's Diamonds, your family jeweler for life. Pristine Design Build, boutique residential solutions for your home. Oliva on the Hill. Fresta Limoncello. Keep sipping, my friends.
Ackerman Toyota, the #1 St. Louis Toyota dealer in volume sales back-to-back years 2023 and 2024. Thank you, St. Louis.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of the Supper Club, brought to you by Mercy and Kuna Food Service. Today we have a young and up-and-coming star chef, Mr. Tyler Layton with Twisted Tree, Twisted Tavern. Tyler, welcome to the show.
How you doing, Joe?
I've been well, real good. Good to see you, my friend.
Yeah, you as well.
It's been a while. It's usually on the ice. We're going at it a little bit, but tell me about a little bit about Twisted Tree. When you guys got started, you just hit the ground running. There was no build up. It just seemed like once you opened up, it just started running, and people flocked to you from the South County area and really started to support you right off the bat.
Yeah, well, we had support, but it wasn't what it is today now.
Right.
I wish I could be like, oh man, we just opened and we were what we are today. But I think we just had a lot of support. I think just the area, everybody was intrigued to see, with the Cybergs being part of it, Cybergs opening a steakhouse, and just, they know a lot of people. They fortunately for me hired me, and then we had a good team. Jimmy Cristo came in there.
Sure,
we had some
Jimmy's
people
on the park.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So we had some people that everybody had. We kind of had support from out the gate because everybody, all of us knew quite a few people and people that wanted to come in and check us out, and then we kind of continue just to keep rolling and growing. We've added a couple dining rooms, added the hotel event spaces, and then it just kind of kept growing. And every time we kind of opened something, I'd kind of go back with the group. Are you sure? And then we'd continue just to keep filling up seats, and it's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
It's pretty awesome. So we're very fortunate, and a lot of hard work. But like I said, I wish it was we opened the door. We're rolling the way we are now. But we had some hiccups and stuff along the way. We learned some things, but
that's right.
Yeah, it's been very fortunate. It's been really, really good.
Well, I know I went in there kind of from the get-go, and it just seemed like you guys kind of hit the ground running. Had a good. Well, fortunately, some good traffic right away.
Yeah,
and it didn't take long.
We tried to create, just something with a little bit of value, and I think, we wanted to kind of be in between, we wanted to be a prime steakhouse, but we didn't want to be the old school steakhouse. We wanted to be new, modern. Wanted people to be able to kind of, if you wanted to bring, some people bring their kids in there. I would not bring, well, my kids do go to Twisted Tree a lot. They think they own the place, but I wouldn't bring them in there to eat. They go in there to kind of work or whatever, essentially, but I wouldn't bring them in there to eat or anything. But people do it, and we're more than welcoming with them, and then just this people, generations of people, like whether it's, my people like my dad's age go in there all the time, people my age. We wanted to kind of open it up to not be just one demographic. We wanted everybody to be able to kind of come in and enjoy a prime steak. And so I think it's a good location with a cool ambiance,
different.
Some people knock it a little bit, because it's not as elegant or whatever. But again, we wanted to be laid back and be more approachable. We didn't want to be something where you had to wear a suit into it. And, we wanted to be approachable and be able to get some really good food. So
it is. It's a casual steakhouse. I would call it. It's got some really cool motifs on the walls and knickknacks to keep you busy as you dine, and a really great bar setup. Yeah, you can watch a game if you want. Not too much. You're not overboard with the TVs, but. it's not your traditional steakhouse where you got the high leather back booths and the chairs and the, one of my favorite steakhouses out in Arizona, Mastro's, with the stacked bottles on the back and the 30-foot ceilings and all that kind of thing. Very cool.
Yeah.
But what do you think it is that sets you different from other steakhouses?
Well, I think one, just the service in general. We have a ton of staff on. We are a bigger store in a bigger place, but which sometimes like we've hired experienced servers, right? And we've wanted to hire older experienced servers, but they usually don't tend to work out. We have a system that we use. We think it helps a lot. The servers really only get 4, maybe 5 tables. They all have their own server assistant. So I think it starts with service, starts with the door, and then I think on the kitchen side, we just continue to kind of keep pushing, pushing ourselves, trying to change our menu as much as we can, change our specials as much as we can. I always say, as a chef, cooking a ribeye, a strip steak, or a filet mignon. I mean, it's great, but it gets boring, right? You buy prime beef, buy the best beef you can buy, you cut it, and then you cook it. But where we have fun is with our pastas, with our risottos, with our seafood programs. I mean, just everything. Seafood's getting flown in every day, and we really have a lot of fun with that kind of stuff. And we love doing seasonal, local. Any local farmers that come in, we usually try to support them. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So,
and of course, you buy your meat from Kuna Food Service.
Absolutely, Kuna is
one of our sponsors.
We've got the big bull outside. It has Kuna on it. So Dan Bippin's been
the best.
He's been an amazing person in my career, and even Skip, the guy I've been ordering from. So Skip is Dan's right hand man, and he's got an office in Dan's office, right?
Oh, does he?
And so they're right there. His office is in Dan's office, and as I've grown in my career, and I've worked with Skip because I've always been, I think, in a position ever since I've been ordering that it's been one of Dan's friends, right? So when you're one of Dan's friends, you usually order from Skip. So Skip's not really a sales rep; he's just Dan's right hand guy.
Skip's his guy.
Skip's his guy.
We're going to talk about it.
Yeah,
we're going to go into that later on, but being the guy, but. Of course, we mentioned earlier, you got Jimmy Gristo working the front of the house. You got you in the back of the house.
Yeah, we also have Will Kunderman. I mean, Will.
He's the cocktail,
the wine
guy,
director,
right?
Yeah,
I see him.
Will's probably one of the most now. I mean, he went to SLU Andriati, right? He's one of the smartest guys I really know, and he's just the way he retains information, geographically, especially knowing which grape was grown here compared to there, just within 15 miles, and why the flavor profiles are different.
It's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, he's really, and then we've got just a lot of talent. A lot, we've got Brooke Curtis is our GM, and she wears a lot of hats and just kicks butt and does really good. So within the building, and then company-wide, we'll probably talk about later too, but within the building, and then I got all my guys, Rolando and Ozzy and Pony, that all do, and Daniel, they all do an amazing job too. So
it takes a team, doesn't it?
Yeah,
and you guys don't have any turnover. I mean, I could not be in there for 3 months and I'll go in there. It's always the same folks.
Usually,
which is great.
Yeah.
Which is really rare today in any business, let alone the restaurant business, right?
Yeah.
To have people loyal to you and be there. And
well, we try to promote within, like I said, we bring in other servers that are older, that are seasoned veteran servers. A lot of times it doesn't work out. Yeah. And I don't know if it's because they come in with I'm not trying to say these people are coming in with a cocky attitude, but they know they've done it for a long time. Well, when we promote a busser into a server, it usually turns out a lot better than bringing somebody else in that's been around for a long time. So we do a lot of promoting within, and that's how we've had retain these people. You'll see people that started working for us in high school, and then they went to college, and then now all of a sudden they're one of our top servers, and so it's pretty cool. It's pretty awesome to see.
Yeah, well, 9 years now you've been going at it. You're going to start to see that type of progression with the guy's career within your organization. But just a laid-back restaurant, but yet you still do some tableside stuff, which is what you normally see at a fine dining joint. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So that was something that I think we did work with the Abadassa family when we first opened. And I think that was something that Albert and Joe Bohr and all those guys with all the restaurants they had in the Ozarks and all that stuff, and the old Pear Tree, was a little bit more old school style service. But we thought as a group and I think that bringing that cart service was like an old school thing in a modern place that would go really kind of cool. And so, the cart service and serving the steaks table side and everything, I think was kind of what we were looking for. So
Yeah. I want to go back a little bit.
Okay.
What was your first job in the restaurant business, and how old were you?
So very, very first job, it was at IHOP, right? Actually, right across the street from Twisted Tree.
No
It's now
kidding.
it's
Really?
now like a little Mexican joint.
Okay.
So,
All right.
but that was I was started out as a busser there. And Sunday mornings it was just, I mean, after church, that place, you go back to like when you think in your career and you go back to like certain days and you're like, me and my career, taverns are open for brunch, but I'm just like, and sometimes I feel bad for people. My wife loves going to brunch. I like going to brunch, but sometimes you almost don't want to because you just look at those guys, you're like, oh my gosh, they're getting just as pounded. So, but yeah, I that was kind of where I learned I wanted to be back of the house. Because one day the dishwasher didn't show up, and so I was like, well, I'll go back and do dishes. And the manager
just
was
raised
like,
your
"You
hand
will?"
and said, "I'll do it."
He's
That's
like, "You
rare.
will?"
You know
Yeah,
what
and
I
he's
mean?
like, are you kidding me? You want to go do dishes? We're gonna be soaking wet and everything. But after that day, I not that I enjoyed washing dishes, I just enjoyed the kitchen atmosphere a whole lot more than the dining room.
It gave you that first perspective in a long-term situation of what goes on in the back of the house in the kitchen, right?
Correct, yeah.
And you had a bird's eye view of it.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
absolutely. Just, the cooks were, even the servers, like you got to go to the kitchen for your almost like, punching back. People will say stuff in the kitchen they can't say. Not that stuff's happening in the kitchen, but say stuff in the kitchen that you don't say in the dining room, right?
Right,
just
right.
like, this person, I can't believe they ordered something like that. Like, I just kind of like the vibe more in the kitchen.
Yeah.
Not knowing then I would be, where I'm at today or anything.
it's
I didn't know
amazing,
what I
though.
wanted to do at 15 years old. I guess I still
Yeah.
wanted to play hockey, but
Yeah, I still don't know what I want to do when I grow up.
exactly,
I'm
right.
still trying to figure it out.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
absolutely.
yeah,
So,
and then you went on to Citizen Kane's, correct?
yeah, Citizen Kane's. So they needed a dishwasher again, and high school job. I was fortunate enough. Tyler Kane was well, actually in high school, man, we were like best friends, and so he was in my class,
Okay.
and it was one of those things like. If I was like not with Tyler, I'd be like, "Where's Tyler?" And I think vice versa, So we hung out. We were really good buds in high school, and so I started working, washing dishes there. I was fortunate. They, Citizen Kane's, talk about a place that doesn't have a lot of turnover, man. Like that place.
Yeah,
They,
you're right.
they make like the family feel and make you feel family and all that. And so a dishwashing position opened up, and so I kind of just jumped on it and worked there once a weekend and once a week. I think like 2 shifts a week.
You like
whatever,
playing
for-
in the water, I guess.
Yeah,
you just like to
exactly,
get back there and
yeah.
play in the suds. But did that steakhouse experience? Have you drawn from any of that at all? Fast forwarding to where you are now with Twisted Tree and Twisted Tavern.
Well,
The whole steakhouse thing. Did it give you any kind of formal, I don't know, ideas or training or was it just another
I don't know if
restaurant?
this really I was fortunate enough as fast forward a couple years later when college happens and I'm leaving, I would have, I didn't know really what I wanted to do. So I was like, well, maybe
Sure.
I'll go to culinary school. When I decided I'm going to go to culinary school, then Frank King gives me an opportunity to start cooking. Well, I didn't know, the things I was making at Citizen Kane's compared to in culinary school. I was like, man, I'm learning so much more. I'm doing all
Really?
these things that, and learning on the job, learning fast paced. So there's a lot of things that I was learning that I didn't realize that those were really good habits and actually from scratch
Right.
and everything. So when you go back to, you're 17 years old, learning how to make béarnaise sauce in the back, learning how to make demi-glace, learning how to make stocks, learning how to, make cream spinach, make mashed potatoes from scratch. It was never like a bagged mashed potato or never instant mash or anything. You're
Yeah.
peeling potatoes, learning how to use a peeler at 17, and just those things, learning how to use a knife and not cut, and all I did, chop my fingers off once at Citizen Kane's as a young cook, but learning those type of things. Yeah, I mean, you go back into it. I was very fortunate to be in that position, and I'll say the other thing is a lot of people ask me, they're like, "Oh, did you cook when you grew up? Did you do this?" And I'm like, "No." And then going out, actually. Not to even give you and your family a plug, it's just a real deal. We when we went out to eat, it was like Pasta House. Was that we were out? That was good. I had 3 sisters, and my mom was a nurse, my dad was a carpenter. So we never went without, but it wasn't like we were very middle class, and so we Pasta House, we were like eating really good. We were like, heck yeah, you know.
Yeah.
And then we did eat a lot at Cyberg's too. Not to give them a plug
Yeah,
either.
yeah.
But,
Well,
you
why
know,
not? Why not?
But that was kind of the stuff I grew up on. I didn't grow
Yeah.
up at Citizen Cane's. I didn't grow up on, you know, Twisted Tree style steakhouses. But I will say, one time, I think what kind of changed me in my career, what made me do what I want to do is, you know, one day there was like a medium rare filet that had got sent back at Citizen Cane's. I think it was medium rare, but the chef, they were like, hey, we want it, you know, more rare or whatever. So chef sliced it up. He's like, hey, try this. So I try the steak, and at that point I had never tasted a steak that rare in my entire life, right? And so I tasted
Almost
it,
like tartare.
yeah,
Right?
and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is amazing, like, you know. And then he put a little béarnaise sauce on it. And this is when I was still washing dishes, and then he put a little béarnaise sauce on it, and I eat that, and I'm like, I didn't know food could taste this good.
So
Are
you're
you
now you're
kidding me?
you're discovering your palate.
Yeah,
a
and I'm
little
like,
bit,
man,
you know,
well, for me, you know, growing up, my mom and my dad, my mom had a couple things she made okay. My dad did a couple things okay, but, you know, barbecue would be those real thin cut pork steaks, like, you know,
Sure.
marinated in wishbone Italian dressing for 2 days, and then my dad would cook them into hockey pucks, and then he would just boil them in sauce for 6 hours. So that was the only way they were tender enough that you could eat them, you know. So so that was kind of, you know. And then my dad's still kind of, I think I finally pushed him to medium well, but like, you know,
right,
but he's and that's just kind of the way we ate steak, was well done, and just, you know, so, I discovered my palate a little bit, and that was something that I was like, man, this is cool. I didn't know food, and in the appreciation of, like, you know, making really good food, and I saw that at Citizen Cane's. So yeah, I think Citizen Cane's had a huge factor on kind of where I'm at today.
Right,
So I don't know if it's just the steakhouse or but obviously that position had me in an amazing, like, I don't know that I'd be where I'm at today without it. But, you know, you see that about everything. There's a lot of stepping stones on the way, you know.
Tell me about culinary school. You touched on it a little bit about how, you know, it's one thing to be in a classroom setting and somebody's teaching you, you know, sauces and how to prepare different types of foods and all kinds of different cuisines, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
But nothing like being thrown into the fire in a restaurant.
Yeah.
During
So,
during the dinner rush,
Yeah.
right? You're not going to learn that in a
Culinary
classroom.
school, yeah.
So how long were you? Was it Forest Park?
Yeah, Forest Park.
Okay.
Yeah. So I only did a year, you know,
Sure.
at Forest Park. I was very fortunate. As soon as I decided to go to culinary school, that's when Frank King gave me an opportunity to start cooking, and then as it happened, I started to get pretty good at it, and I got more and more hours, and I was like, man, I'm just learning so much more, and I'm getting paid to do that instead of, you know. But culinary school is, because it is good. It touches on multiple different, you know, cuisines and multiple different, so that I'm not trying to discourage anybody from culinary school, but it is hard to mimic. You know, you go out, you can learn some things in culinary school, learn about the mother sauces with Escoffier, learn about, like I said, different cuisines, do a little
Sure.
bit of baking, but, you know, again, nothing, you know, I think anything in life you do well with repetition, right? You know,
That's
and
right.
especially cooking, and
Absolutely.
especially, so, you know,
Absolutely.
it's tough when you go, I mean, even hockey players, you know, take a slap shot 100 times a day, like, you know, and just keep going, you know, to try to, you know, and they work on passes, work on things, you know, and that, I think that's the only way to really, it's hard to, you know, do a recipe and be like, oh, okay, cool, now you're done with baking class, you know, you did a couple classes, you did cupcakes one day, you did a cake one day, you did you know, it's something that you have to just continue to do, and just continue to, repetition, I think, is what really makes it, you know, and it's hard to mimic that. I get it, culinary school, using the ingredients, it's hard to mimic that, you know, so I don't want to knock it.
Yeah.
Just school was never really probably my my strong suit.
I think it's something. I think you did it right though.
Yeah.
1 year.
Yeah.
I think that's enough to get some different ideas from
Yeah.
different cuisines, and somebody kind of showing you a way around the kitchen and whatnot, and how to cut up food, cut steaks, whatever. I want to go back. I want to go move a little bit forward now, and I think you would agree, except for maybe right now, the body of your work was probably done at Trattoria Marcella. Stevie and Jamie
100%.
Komarak.
Yeah.
Great Italian restaurant. Always gets voted like best Italian restaurant in the country.
Like in the world,
Or in the
yeah.
world.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
no,
unbelievable
yeah,
what those
exactly.
guys do. I mean,
Amazing.
Those guys, I grew up with those guys,
Yeah.
played a little hockey with them when we were
Yeah.
kids. And I played hockey with Jamie. We just watched my brother and Stevie run around the ice rink all day long.
I love that.
Raising all kinds of hell in the ice rinks. But
I love that.
But tell me a little bit. How did you get on at Trattoria Marcella?
Okay, so I was, kind of after Canes, did some bouncing around here and there, kind of, I'd always said if I could get a job at Trattoria Marcella, I would. So first time I ever ate at Trattoria Marcella was with, I think, Tyler Kane and then Drew Dobbs. Drew Dobbs, like, not to go off on a tangent with him, but him and Tyler Kane were probably the first two people to kind of introduce me to like good food, right? And just like, the way that the restaurants and things he ate at where I had never been at places like that. And I was like, and so, we ate at his 16th birthday, we ate at Bush's Grove, like,
the best.
So just those type of things, like that's a dinner. I mean, I'm 38 years old. That was when I was 15 when we ate there. And I'm like, that was years ago, like, and I still remember that dinner, so it's just, there's certain dinners and certain things that make you like, man, that was awesome. Like, and just cool stuff. And so I just remember we had went to Trattoria Marcella a couple times, just, and I loved it, and I was like, man, this would be an awesome place to work. And somehow I don't know if like there was something online that they were hiring, I don't know, but I went in and actually talked to Stevie. Had no idea who Stevie was, but talked to him, and I was like, well, I'd love an opportunity to work here. He's like, when can you start? I had a decent resume, and I was young. You
just happened to walk in the restaurant, and he was there, maybe doing some paperwork or something.
Yeah, probably. And so we. And we talked, and then he's like, well, he's like, I'm in a weird position. When can you start? And so whenever we start, I started later that week. Maybe the next day, I don't know, but we started, and it was funny. I thought I was a young, very cocky cook. I was like, man, I've worked at Citizen Cane's, I've done this, I've done that, and I'm like,
you're a big shot.
And then when I met Stevie,
you met Stevie,
and then I met Stevie K, and I was like, wow, I didn't know.
Who's worked for David Slay, La Veranda in L.A. Mark Cusimano basically was a chef at Le Piccolo's. At
Greg
the bottom
Perez,
floor of that big downtown building down there when they were downtown.
I mean, shoot, he went to Vegas for a little stint.
That's right. Stevie's been around. Yeah.
I mean, the guy is probably honestly like the most underrated chef. Like, I don't say that just because like he is a good friend of mine. Love the guy, but yeah, I there was one time I remember. So when guys like you or guys like Chief or Hoppy or somebody would come into the restaurant, he would go, and I still try to like mimic this to this day. I do this sometimes too when I'm not too busy. He would always go back, and you're on the line, you're cooking, you're like, oh my gosh, like, and again, he hired me as the pasta cook, right? And so, but I'd be on the station, I'm struggling, man. The first couple weeks, I was like, man, I don't know if I'm gonna have a job Monday. I was like worried. I was like, but we came in and in the middle of like rush, Stevie come back and he would just start using all your utensils and use this stuff. And then like I remember the first time he did that, out of nowhere, just off the flip, he made a ravioli and nudie. And it like had like crispy prosciutto and like I don't even know. There's no way he remembers this because he was just looking on your station, and just the way that he could walk up to a line and just look at stuff and then just make something that was like completely not on the menu, but you're just like, dude, you just made that in like 10 minutes, and it was ridiculous. Now, the cooks would always...
That's a chef.
Yeah,
not a baker. That's what a chef does.
Correct.
Right? That's what a chef does.
Correct. And that's, some people will be like, hey, remember when you made me this thing like a couple years ago, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, was it on the menu? And they're like, no. And I'm like, no, I don't remember. And I'm like, I could try to make something like that, but there's no way. I was just cooking, And that's where the passion, I think, comes in, the love comes in or whatever. But the way that I used to tell chefs as we started training at Trattoria more, and they'd be like, man, I hate when that guy comes back here and just start. And I'm like, just watch what he's doing though. I'm like, you want to learn? I'm like, wait, we have our menu that you know how to cook. I'm like, but watch what he did. And then I'll like explain to him what he did and why he did what he did. And they were like, holy cow, like, and so that was just something Stevie just, his menu's great. He's always been great, but the way when he just goes back there and just starts making something, I mean, the guy's amazing.
Yeah. Hold that thought. We'll be right back after these messages.
Kuna Food Service, providing quality food to people across the Midwest, is part of our rich history at Kuna because food brings people together. We specialize in having a large variety of food products and food supplies, catering to an array of businesses that turn to us. Kuna Food Service, a family-owned tradition since 1918.
Cook dinner and pick up from soccer practice.
Take a number.
I also took her to school. And
Nobody likes to wait. Mercy is eliminating the wait for great health care. Our online tools mean you can get the care you need now. Mercy Now. More of what you need now.
Oliva on the Hill. It's Italy in the city. With exquisite old world charm, this ideal setting is perfect for your next special event, wedding, just having lunch, or enjoying Wine Down Wednesday and the Antique Market. Check it out, olivaonthehill.com. Lordo's Diamonds, your family's jeweler for life. Family owned and operated for over 70 years, specializing in engagement rings, fashion jewelry, gemstones, and in-house jewelry repair. Relaxed, friendly atmosphere, competitive pricing, and a selection second to none. Conveniently located just west of the Galleria on Clayton Road. Lordo's Diamonds, your family's jeweler for life. LordosDiamonds.com. Go Fresta for Fresta Limoncello. My handcrafted small batch citrus liqueur is perfect for sipping or pouring in a cocktail. All natural, gluten-free, Fresta Limoncello is sold at Schnucks, Dierberg's, Straub's, Total Wine, and local restaurants. Fresta Limoncello. Keep sipping, my friends.
We're with Tyler Layton, executive chef with Twisted Tree and Twisted Tavern. You do both of them.
Yep.
But just to wrap up your days with Trattoria Marcella, you were thrown right into the fire. You meet Stevie Komarek.
Yeah.
And he put you to work right away.
Yeah.
You were in there you figured it out. You just for about a year, and then you become the kitchen boss.
Yeah. So I was fortunate that unfortunately I didn't get to work very long with Mikey Risk. Amazing chef, Alvin Oak. He's always, everything he does is amazing. So, in the Alvin Oak group, they do a good job.
Mark.
He a great job. Yeah,
Mark's
Mark
group.
and
Right.
Jess. I mean, they're all great. And they've really built something special over there as well.
Yeah.
With both Alvin Oaks now, and then they got the Clover and the Bee and the event space. They got everything going. They got a really
He owns
cool
the whole
thing.
street.
Yeah, he really does, man. They do a great job. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, so Mikey was his chef for a long time. He
Okay.
had Mikey going, and then as we transition, when I started, Mikey was kind of on his way out. He was opening a deli with a couple of his buddies, and he had a long stint there with Stevie, and was Stevie's like first protege, right? And really like
kidding.
somebody Stevie had taken under his wing, I believe, and those two worked together for a really long time, and Jamie as well. So that was happening, and Stevie. So when I first started, like after Mikey left, Stevie was the one. I mean, I don't think he had done it in a while, but he was ordering. He was doing everything. The specials. He was doing everything, which was great. That I actually personally for about a year got to work under Stevie K as being the chef, right? He had to kind of go back and be the active chef. He's the chef owner always, but he had Mikey that was, running his kitchen for him and the chef de cuisine have you. So I kind of saw an opportunity. He had brought on one of his old guys that he knew for a long time, a guy that took me under his wing as well, as Marcel Henry. He did a really good job, and then Mikey's sister Leslie was there, and a couple of his alum were there. This guy named Guillermo who took me under his wing, was a really good, great cook. And then Leslie, Mikey's sister, and they were all still there. Dan Johanning was still there. They all kind of started training me some stuff and teaching me the Mikey way and teaching me the Stevie way, let me know. And then nobody really wanted it though, right? And I was kind of like, man, I want to be the kitchen manager. I want to be a chef, and they were all kind of like, here you go, kid. And Stevie just handed me
ordering, everything. I mean, that's part of the deal, not just cooking.
Yeah,
you got to forecast the food,
correct.
what you're going to need this week. I know your history, what we sold on,
correct.
4th of July weekend and all that. You got to know all that stuff to forecast everything.
And Stevie, Stevie kind of handed me the clipboard. It wasn't always great. It wasn't like I came in and just kicked butt right away. There was some ups and downs and stuff, but he kind of let me, and I saw an opportunity, just kind of grabbed it, and they gave me a great opportunity, Stevie and Jamie. So, and I just never really looked back. And then I ended up working there right about 10 years, and never thought I'd leave. Never thought anything would ever. I thought I'd still today, 9 years after that, like still sit here and think I'd still be there, and family atmosphere and all that kind of stuff.
Let me ask you, when you kind of took over the back of the house, did that allow Stevie to go out and work the the front
absolutely.
of the house.
Yeah,
And-
yeah.
And you know what? The guy's got such a great personality, just like his brother
Yeah.
Jamie. A lot of energy.
Well, and I think he had done.
And they had just opened up Mia Sorella too, I believe. So the two of them had to kind of divide and conquer anyway.
Correct.
So
Well, that was something I always say. So when they opened, I was probably at Trattoria for, I would say 5 years.
okay,
That Mia Sorella was that, and then we opened Mia Sorella, and when they opened Mia Sorella, and maybe it was 6. I don't know how old Mia Sorella was when I left, but when they opened Mia Sorella, that was something I always kept being like, well, I already do everything, and then when they were both gone for a little bit, I was like, oh crap, I didn't realize how much those two guys did,
Yeah.
but definitely, I think. Myself, Stevie was able to be in the front a little bit
Yeah,
more. He was
yeah.
able to kind of do more stuff, and then him and Jamie have. I think they still have a schedule that one of them's at Mia
yeah,
one
they
day,
do.
and one of them's at
absolutely.
and so
You have to.
Yeah, and they've
And
done a
Christine helps out.
Absolutely.
She jumps in.
Joey, Christine,
Yeah.
and
Another place that has no turnover. I mean, it's just
right,
these people. Vinny,
Yeah,
Vinny,
exactly, yeah.
Vinny was my guy all the time.
Yeah.
He was I was one of his call parties. You know what I mean?
Clay's been there forever.
Yeah.
Bartender. I mean, they do a great job. Nate's been there forever. Nate at this point's been there longer than I was there. And so he's the guy that runs both the kitchens now, and kind of is now, I guess, the me.
Yeah.
But Nate does, and I think he's splitting time kind of both, because I think, Stevie and Jamie, I think they're kind of. I think they're hopefully wanting to kind of take a little bit of a step back. I don't know that for sure, but I know Stevie's a grandpa now, and so
Oh,
so
boy. Don't tell me that.
yeah, exactly right. So yeah.
Yeah. What was your favorite dish at Trattoria Marcello?
Oh my goodness. I mean,
Give me two of them.
there's just there's so much that I learned. The knowledge that I learned there is, you can't just say one. You can't say whatever. I do think, I know a lot of people say Stevie's lobster risotto. Me personally, I think the best pasta dish that he's ever made and that he does is that rigatoni's out. It's next level.
With
The
the
roasted
cauliflower.
cauliflower and
Yeah,
the
the
pine
best.
nuts and the shrimp and the tomato cream. I mean, amazing dish there. His chicken spadini is really good. I really like Stevie's chicken spadini, but I also really think his lasagna, next level. I mean, and it's lasagna for like 2 or 3 days. Like, but making those lasagnas was really, really fun back in the day. And that's something special. I don't know anywhere that serves a lasagna the way that he does it. And he does a great job with it. So
For me, it's got to be, well, of course, the lobster risotto is the best. But then, but other than that, I'd have to say chicken soto or and straw and hay.
That straw and
The
hay's awesome
mascarpone.
too. Yeah.
Huh?
The
The
mascarpone
best.
cream sauce. Yeah.
Yeah,
with the
and then if
prosciutto
Stevie's in the
and
mood, the old Marcella salad. That's not on the menu
they
anymore.
chopped with the chicken.
Oh,
and
with the
Italian
rotini
pasta.
noodles.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and then balsamic vinegar. Yeah, my favorite salad that he ever did, probably my favorite salad still to this day, was he called it his chop salad. So it had garbanzo beans, like chopped
Right.
iceberg, chopped like shredded iceberg, chopped mixed greens. He had a creamy basil vinaigrette. That creamy basil vinaigrette's the best dressing I've ever had in my life. And then he would puree the prosciutto. So it was like the prosciutto was just like in every bite. Like it was, I mean, it was like like a minced prosciutto, like out of and then the marinated the marinated balsamic tomatoes. Like he puts those on everything, he put those on there. That's probably actually my favorite salad that I've ever had. And that it's hard to say one dish. We could sit here and talk about dishes that we've done over the years that were on and off the menu at Trattoria for years. His eggplant parmesan is next level. I've never had an eggplant. I mean, every other person does like a thick cut eggplant. You cut the eggplant, you flour bread it and then fry it.
Yeah.
He's like razor thin, dusts it in flour, pan fries it, and then layers it like a lasagna, and it's like this thick. It's amazing what he does. Like his eggplant parmesan. I mean, guy's crazy talented.
And of course, that lemon hummus. I could eat that with a spoon.
Exactly.
But anyway, so you're there for 10 years, okay? And then Twisted Tree comes calling. Tell me how that transition took place. Who came to you? How did that all come to be?
So, we had a cook. There was a cook that worked at Helen's during the day, right?
Okay.
And he worked at Trattoria at night with us, and he was saute cook. And And he kept saying like, hey, the Cybergs are open at a steakhouse. And I was like, I was like, I love the Cybergs, but I was like, I don't know. And then he's like, well, no, I'm telling you, they like need a chef. And I'm like, well, I don't know. Or I don't know what kind of steakhouse they'd be opening.
Yeah.
But somehow, some way, who is now my direct boss, Jim Schutte, and our phone numbers, we ended up talking. Somehow I don't know who called who first. I think he called me, and then, but I think it was because like I was like, you should call him, and he kept being like, you should talk to him. So I talked to him. We just had a conversation. He's like, hey, I just kind of wanted to let you know what we're open and just see if you had any interest. And I was like, well, I'm willing to listen to opportunity.
Sure.
But, I was like, I'm in a good place. He's like, cool, that's great, but let's just talk. So I think the first phone call I had after that phone, because I call Stevie. I'm like, I don't know what to do. And he's like, hey, you've earned it in your career. Because Stevie's like a dad to me, right? I mean, I love the guy. I looked up to him.
Yeah.
And he's like, you owe yourself in your career to at least talk and stuff. I don't know that Stevie knew what it was going to turn into. I didn't know at that point.
Right.
And so Jim and I,
Jim Schutte, let me interrupt you one second. Jim Schutte, sort of the man behind the curtain at Cyber Group. Would
Correct.
you not agree?
Yeah, I would definitely agree. So he's their COO, and big partner at Twisted Tree and at Twisted Tavern,
Right.
and he's a guy that really,
Sharp guy.
Correct. Very sharp guy. I never met anyone like him. So driven. I mean, ridiculous. Like some of the stuff, it's just the guy, he just at next level when it comes to business and creating cool opportunities and doing things like, I think the Cybergs would confidently say they wouldn't be where they're at without him today. And he's done a great thing and made it really something special and helped them make it something special. And the Cybergs obviously are great people.
Great guys.
And they've done a great job for a long time, but Jim's really helped them push into, I don't know that if you would ask Brett and Rick and Kirk, if they tell you that they had 13 restaurants and plans to be 15 and 16, and so I don't know that they would have, 20 years ago, if you asked them that, they were probably like, are you kidding me? Like, there's no way we're going to open that many restaurants, but Jim's really kind of made something special and helped them create that opportunity to continue to do it. So Jim and I we actually really just kind of had a couple conversations, became friends, and just really talked and we never really even talked numbers. We talked about hey, this would be a cool idea, this would be cool, and just kind of started just talking.
You were matching up. He was probably tapping into your creativity.
Yeah, and
which was probably something that was pretty attractive to you.
Yeah,
you could go and start something from the ground up.
Yeah, and so we just kind of. And he was like, we're going to have the first couple weeks, we'll have little guardrails up on you and on all of us, and we'll kind of, but then he's like, dude, we can do some really cool, really special stuff together. And he told me, and he was like, I'm not Stevie K, man. I can't teach you how to cook, right? He's like,
nobody's Stevie K.
Yeah, he's like, that's not me. He's like, but what I can do is I can teach you how to operate, and I can teach you how to do really well for yourself and provide for your family and continue to keep growing in your career, and I can teach you how to do those things, and he's really delivered, and I mean, we take, and so we, like I said, I feel like I consider him a friend. I do work for him, but I consider him a friend, and there's good days and bad days. There's some days where I'm like, if you kept me, I'd be like, I don't know if he's my friend anymore. But no, just because going round and round, obviously in business and that stuff, we have our disputes. But he is, I truly consider him a friend. But he's a guy that you want to be around, because he's a guy that is very successful, and everything he does is usually successful, and it turns into success, and you're like, well, I want to be around somebody that's successful and continue to help me grow. And so we had multiple conversations, and then finally at one point he's like, Tyler, man, I gotta know. He's like, and he we really never really talked money. And then I was like, well, okay. And he's like, well, what's it gonna take? And then I was like, well, and then I said so, and it was funny because I said something, I was like, well, okay, here's what and he's like, all right, cool, when can you start? And I was like, oh crap. And I was like, maybe I short something, no, but so it was a great agreement. And then, and then I actually ended up giving, I think it was a full, at least 6 weeks.
I want to stop you right there.
Yeah.
What was that conversation like when you had to sit down with Jamie and Stevie and tell them that, I think I'm gonna make the move? And
well,
how was that?
If you even backtrack just a little bit even before that. Before I
Okay.
kind of made it was the hardest decision I ever made in my life. I mean, honestly,
Yeah,
I mean,
bet.
I at that point in my life, and still, I think to this day, it's still probably the hardest decision I ever had to make.
Yeah.
Like Ashley and I, asking her to marry me, I knew I wanted to marry her, and we were great in our relationship, and I knew that, like, and that there was some things like, but that was one of the hardest decisions I ever made, and it was nerve-wracking, shaking, and so I went in and Stevie and I talked, and then there was a little bit of, like, I think at first with them, and not to knock them out because Stevie and Jamie are such good people, but I think there was a little like, are you serious? You're gonna go do that? You're gonna give up this to go do that? And I was like, I think so, like, and I was like, I think it's a great opportunity, and then so obviously there was some talks, and then but I mean, bottom line, the last day, that it did happen, Stevie and I are both in tears, and, and he's like, and just, and so, and, but I think, it was one of the most difficult decisions. And then that conversation with Stevie was a very difficult conversation. And again, I think Stevie maybe, he might be like, man, I don't know why I told him he should, but everything happens for a reason. He even told me that. He's like, you know what? Nothing's forever.
Yeah.
And he's like, and everything happens for reasons. And I think if he was sitting right here, he'd probably, tell me he's super proud of me, and
Well, he's been there.
Yeah.
He was with David Sway out in LA for a while,
Yeah.
and you can't fault somebody for wanting to improve themselves or better themselves or put themselves and their family in a better situation.
Yeah.
So, knowing those guys, I mean, they understood all that.
Absolutely.
Right? So
they and they understand, and they and again, so but yeah, that's the difficult decision, but but I think ultimately ended up being one of the best decisions I ever did. I mean,
Sure.
Ended up being a really good decision, but it's scary. I'm always a guy, I'm not a chef that, like, you see a lot of chefs where they want to go somewhere for they go somewhere for a year, and then they go here for a year, then they go there, then they go here, and I'm like, I like
Bounce
stability,
around.
And once I found somewhere that I really like and enjoy, I'm kind of like, hey, I'm good here, like, and not that I'm content, because I think at this point in my career, I don't know that I'll ever be content, right? And I think,
and that's a good thing.
correct,
It really is.
And I think, and some of it is the group that I'm surrounded by is never content at this point. Jim Schutte, a guy we were just talking about, but we have Tracy Stamper, Kirk Seiberg, like all of them, like they're a growing group, and they're progressive, and they're going to keep growing whether they have me or have whoever or not. They're going to continue to keep growing, and they're going to be successful, and we're going to be, and we're going to continue to push to who knows what it'll end up being, but
So they bring you in. You kind of they let you just kind of create the menu, or did you have to work with somebody, or how did that all materialize, the menu and everything?
So yes, no, all of it around. The one thing we knew is that we knew. And I almost didn't take the job over it, but I knew we knew fried lobster because of the Abadassa connection. We knew, in the Joe Boer, that, really Abadassa, Joe Boer really had nothing to do with Twisted
Fried
Treat.
lobster. There was a couple joints down in the Lake of the Ozarks.
Correct, and that's what I'm saying. I came
the
back
Blue
with that.
Heron.
Correct, yeah.
And another
and
place.
The potted steer.
The potted steer underneath the bridge.
Yeah,
but that's
absolutely.
no longer there anymore.
No, yeah.
So the fried lobster. Oh, tremendous.
So those, and I was like, almost like, that goes against everything, like, in my culinary career I've ever learned, right? And I'm like, like, why would you fry a lobster? So, and then I just remember the first time I met Abadassa, we sat down and we talked, and we had a fried lobster, and I was like,
okay,
holy cow, that's good. Like, and I was like, it's really good. And then I was like trying to get into the scientific reasoning of why it wasn't super rubbery and super chewy, and and it's the marinating it in buttermilk, and the acid of the buttermilk's breaking down the the enzymes and the protein, all that stuff. Not to nerd out, but
now we're getting into science.
Yeah, exactly. But it's just like, I was like, it's just it was so good. And so they said, the salad, they were like, the two things that you really can't change really is salad service and lobster. And we know we want to sell steaks. We like Creekstone Farms. They kind of knew how they wanted to cook the steaks, because at that point in my career, I maybe still would have been like, hey, like, we have this wood fire grill. Why don't we cook the steaks on there? but they were like, hey, we're using this, we're going to sear them, we're going to cast iron sear them. And so that was something that I was like, I wasn't used to in my career at that point, Citizen Kane's grills all their steaks. And so I was like, Stevie K was a big grill on his steaks. He didn't, so a lot of the steaks that I had cooked in my career had for the most part been on a char grill
Sure.
and I'm like, and then at Twisted Tree, we had a wood fire assist char grill. I'm like, why are we not we still do.
Yeah.
So I'm like, why? But besides those things, and then as we've grown, as we evolve, I remember going back to it. So like, I think, when I first started, like everybody was there. Shooty was there every day. Kirk Cyber was there every day. Brett and Rick were still there, a couple times a week. Obviously Jimmy, Will, but then it was like, all the other management team was there every single day. Tracy, Rachel, Lisa Cross, everybody was there every single day. And we were all trying, because it's a new concept, we're all trying to make sure. And I was the first chef they've ever hired, right? So
Sure.
the Cyborgs they hired kitchen managers.
They've never had a chef.
Correct.
Yeah.
And so they told me that, like Kirk Cyber's I've never hired
So this
a
is
chef
something new
before.
for the Cybergs too. I mean,
Correct.
They're basically were sports bar guys, right?
Correct,
And
yeah.
so now they're graduating, trying to mimic this thing that was done out in rural Missouri.
Yeah.
Here in St. Louis, and so it was kind of a new thing for everybody.
Correct. Yeah. And so unfortunately, like, the Abadassa family was there as well. Like Abadassa had him and his chef and all his workers there to help train, because his restaurant was getting had some fire restoration stuff going on. So he was actually, at that point kind of trying to help get it open, and his whole crew was there. And I just remember, like, the very first thing I did was Kirk Cyberg one day, we were making Abadassa was like, hey, these onion rings we have are really good. And like, so the way that we do our onion rings, we guarantee that when you bite into the onion ring, you're not going to get that onion that peels down on your, and it's going to peel out of the breading. The way that we do it, it's a process. So even our onion rings is as simple as something as onion rings. It's a process, and we just guarantee you're not going to be burning your chin with
And
an
these
onion.
things are huge too, man.
Yeah, we use the colossal onions and use those, and so everybody started knocking Kirk. Kirk was in the dining room every day, like I said when it first opened. He's like, man, everybody keeps saying, you're talking about how good your onion rings are, but you just serve them with ketchup. Like, you need a sauce. And so he's like, I'm thinking about just maybe like looking at like the bloomin' onion recipe, trying to find that online and do that from Outback. And I was like, well, can I like try to do something? And he was just like, okay. And this is like a weekend, right? And so I'm like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
So the next day I had 10 sauces laid out for Kirk, and he's like, and I think Kirk would still tell you this story, that was like the first thing. He's like, okay, I think we got a guy here. So had 10 different sauces. I knew which one I liked the most, which one I thought was the most unique and different. And so now they use it in Cybergs as well, but it's our onion ring sauce. It's kind of a cross between a vinaigrette and an aioli, but
I was going to say an aioli,
so that was so that was kind of the first thing I did, and then after that, I think everybody started settling in, and they're like, all right, cool, like what else you got? And then I was like, well, I would be like this, and then so just kind of slowly progressed into,
You started hitting your stride, left you alone.
Yeah,
like,
and
you know
then
what?
they just kind of,
You know what? Kid knows what he's doing. Let's just let him run with it.
Yeah.
And then place just starts getting busier and busier. You expand a little bit. The Cybergs buy the Holiday Inn, the hotel. You put in another bar off to the south there, which is tremendous.
Yeah,
Great
love
addition
that bar.
to it.
Yeah.
And then they do a little spin-off from Twisted Tree to this new Twisted Tavern concept.
Yeah.
Tell me how much you were involved with that, and also how are the two concepts different, even though they're kind of named the same?
So when we Twisted Tavern, we actually opened that back, before some of the renovation. We were expanding Twisted Tree, but Twisted Tree was so good, and from day one that I went on, like I said, these guys, like, it is not. At first, I used to say these guys have like such an because it was just different. Like Stevie and Jamie, like, love them, but they were like, smaller, mom and pop. They opened a second restaurant, and then it was like, compared to where I'm at now, where they're like, hey, we've got 10 restaurants, we want an 11th, we want a 12th, and you're just like, oh my goodness, and just seeing like how, and it's corporate, but it's not, like, it's still very local and very like, so super cool. So they had said they wanted to open a burger joint, and we had done some traveling, like, we'd went to Chicago a couple times, like myself and Kirk, and
Little research and development.
Yeah, and so they wanted to have like a smash burger joint, and they thought like this, because smash burgers were kind of, they still are popular.
Big deal, yeah.
And so Twisted Tavern, when COVID kept happening and when they kept shutting down St. Louis County, we were like, we had the building in Arnold, and we knew we were like, okay, like so we pushed, and the contractors ended up getting it open. So we opened, which I would highly not recommend this, and I don't think we'll ever do it again. But we opened December of 2020,
right before Christmas.
Correct, but
wow, you guys.
But St. Louis County wasn't open, so we were only able to have like, it was like half dining, or I'm not even sure. I think it was one of those rules where like you couldn't be in St. Louis County after a certain amount of times, only half capacity or quarter capacity or whatever it was. So Jefferson County, there was no COVID, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah,
right. But like, so Jefferson County, we were just in Jefferson County, so we were able to go out there and open that restaurant, and it was from day one. Twisted Tavern Arnold was, I mean, ridiculous. I mean, lines out the door. We'd already had a following.
Because people were flocking to Jeff City, or Jefferson County.
Yeah, Jefferson County.
Because they could go out
County.
to dinner and
Correct.
not be, not be bothered and hassled with all the the pandemic BS.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you guys right off the get go, right before Christmas.
Correct.
Boy, talk about being thrown in the deep end of the pool. Wow.
I remember a couple because we didn't really take reservations there. We had a wait list or whatever.
Yeah.
And I remember a couple like Saturday and Sunday mornings where I was like, I always tell people, like, I feel like I was like in The Walking Dead, right? I'd be like, looking out, and then we had all those windows. It's just windows. The whole restaurant's windows, right?
Yeah.
And there's just people like looking at it. And you're just like, we don't even open yet for another hour. I'm like, oh my gosh, like, and it was just
people just wanting to get out of the house.
Yeah, exactly.
And they were all probably coming up from St. Louis.
Yeah, absolutely. So when we first opened that, I was there a lot. I was there, in the first Twisted Tavern, and again, Twisted Tree was good because we weren't really doing a whole lot of sales because we were kind of very limited, and so I was out there for probably 6 months. 90% of my time was at Twisted Tavern, and then started slowly getting back. We hired a chef. We did some training, but really my role at Twisted Tavern now is just menus, recipes, and then I work with the kitchen managers and chefs that we have there, and if they need anything, I'm willing to help them on the day-to-day stuff, but on most of those, if it's like scheduling and this and that, I'm kind of like, hey, you guys are on your own on that. But so most of my stuff is just menus, recipes, and then, we do a really awesome pizza out there. I'm really proud of the pizza. So the difference of Twisted Tavern and Twisted Tree. Twisted Tavern, again, we went in, we opened a second one just this past October 2024, out in St. Peter's, and it's a beautiful restaurant. I really like that. St. Peter's is kind of different realm for me. I grew up in South City, Shrewsbury, Webster, Sunset Hills, that area. So for me, it's definitely way out there, but it's doing really well. And I think the restaurant itself is beautiful, and but really it's just kind of anytime we do a new menu out there, just any recipes, anything, time we tweak anything up, and just it's, smash burgers. We have a couple steaks on the menu, a little bit of seafood, and then a really nice 48-hour fermented pizza. And we just wanted something where, it's not a sports bar. There are more TVs and things than there are at Twisted Tree. But it's not a sports bar. It's a restaurant that, you can get, a little good
more
cocktail.
laid back.
Yeah. The service isn't quite what
easier menu.
Correct.
Right?
Easier menu, a little bit, you can, you don't have to, it's not as expensive, but you can still get a steak that, if you want to get it's the exact same steak we serve at Twisted Tree, at Creekstone Farms. And so you can get a good steak, you can get a good pizza, you can get a good smash burger, you can get.
So it's maybe a place you could bring your family.
Absolutely.
The kids.
A little bit.
And everybody's cool with it.
We go back to what I said, I wouldn't bring my kids to eat at Twisted Tree, even though people do, and I love that they do, but I would definitely bring my kids, and I have brought my kids to Twisted Tavern to eat, and that's a little bit more like, so it's, and then you could, but the cool thing about it is you can still get a really nice old fashioned there. Same old fashioned that you're going to get at Twisted Tree. You can get some of the same, like the cocktail program at Twisted Tavern, and the bar program is really good, and the bars are great, and the girls do great that work them, and so it's still where you can get an elevated cocktail, elevated burger, elevated service, but not necessarily, and you can get in and out of there in an hour instead of 2 or 3 or whatever, and all that kind of stuff too. So
okay, I got a question for you. Hottest thing on the menu at Twisted Tree?
Twisted Tree.
Or maybe just give me 2 of your.
Well,
what lunch, do people go for?
So at lunch, you know, and I know you didn't really probably were mainly talking dinner, but at lunch we actually still sell a surprising amount of steaks at lunch. I mean, people that'll eat like a 20-ounce
kidding.
ribeye. I'm like, what are you going to do today? You're eating a 20-ounce ribeye at lunch, but I'm like, more power to you. I love you, but I'm like, but a twisted chicken sandwich. So it's a fried chicken sandwich, has Marcoute Farms Gouda, candied bacon, and then our onion ring sauce that I was telling you about. That's for sure at both Twisted Taverns and at Twisted Tree. That's our highest seller sandwich. And then at night, you know, I would say filet mignon's our biggest seller, but, you know, I would say the Oscar-style filet. So the Oscar-style filet has a bed of asparagus, and then it has, you know, Alaskan king crab, and then béarnaise sauce with a 8-ounce filet. That's one of our biggest sellers, has been pretty much since we put it on the menu.
You know what I love?
What's that?
The chicken Caesar salad.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, we saw a lot of
Comes
those
in
at
the
lunch
big
too.
bowl.
Yep, absolutely.
And I just say, hey, I don't even fool around with them spoons. Just give me a fork.
Yeah,
I just
exactly.
eat it right out of the
Out of the
bowl.
silver bowl. I
Yeah,
love
just
it.
all
There you
by
go.
itself.
I love it.
I
There
know
you
it's
go.
for two, but
Yeah.
I just
There you go.
I'll knock that out at dinner time. You know, sit at the bar. Love it. Do you make your own Caesar dressing?
We do. Yeah. So
Great Caesar dressing.
Well, thank you. We make all of our dressings in house. I mean, we pretty much everything we can do, we make in house. So, but yeah, all three of our dressings: the Caesar, the Madame French, and the house, the sweet onion vinaigrette. And then we also have, you know, during the day we do a couple more salads and stuff.
Yeah.
So we'll have like a balsamic vinaigrette, and then like an avocado ranch, and got a couple other things that we do for other salads that we offer during the day too. So.
You get a rare night off. Okay.
Yeah.
And you and the wife get to go out to dinner.
Yeah.
Where are you going?
So there's a lot of people ask us.
Where does Tyler Layton go eat dinner?
So it just depends, like what the setting is. No kids.
Give me your top three.
Top three, and it's a night, because like, you know, during the day, because during the day you got to throw Joyas in there or something like that. But you know, if you're talking night and you're talking, the new Bartolino's is amazing. I really like that. We've been there once or twice. Like,
beautiful.
It's really, really cool.
Yeah.
And what the Saracenos did with that's amazing, right?
Gorgeous restaurant.
Yeah, beautiful. Really like it. One of our favorite little like sushi spots or whatever is on South Grand Cafe Mochi.
Okay.
Really, really good there. But again, if we're going for like a night out, we like Louis Demon is pretty good. That's
the
actually
best.
Jimmy's old place. Like really,
Yeah,
like
Jimmy on the park.
yeah, I really like that space a lot. And then
Chef Matt.
Yeah, Matt does an amazing
Oh,
job.
he's tremendous.
and then
Tremendous guy too.
we go a lot for like brunch, but we don't go, and we'll bring the family. Another place that you can bring the kids and stuff, like we like Katie's Pizza and Pasta for like brunch,
Sure,
you know,
yeah.
and that kind of stuff. So, you know, and then but we. You know, we try to. I try to go somewhere to see my friends. You know, like we'll try to go to Olive and Oak when we can. You know, and then we do a lot of our eating. Like we'll go. You know, at least quarterly. We'll go to either at least Chicago or somewhere. And we do a lot of eating. Like we'll go to all the fancy like a lot of fancy restaurants when we go out, but in different cities and stuff. But yeah I would say Bartolino's. The new Bartolino's is beautiful. I you know, 801 Chop. One of my buddies is the chef there. I like going in there, sitting there at the bar, and just having a drink or
801 Chop.
two.
Good, probably the most expensive restaurant in St. Louis.
I was gonna say,
no doubt about it.
I don't really.
Let me tell you something. You better back up a Brinks truck when you go out to dinner at that joint.
Well, that's where I'm fortunate. My
Unbelievable.
buddy's the chef there, and I just like to go in there for. I just like to go in there for a cocktail or two. I don't.
Sure.
We usually maybe have an appetizer, but
One
just
of
like the vibe.
one of their
of it.
$20 Manhattans.
Yeah, exactly. No, but and then 801 Local I like, but again that's a lunch spot. We do like lunch at 801
love
Local a
Local.
bit. Yeah, I really like
They
that.
serve my limoncello there, by the way.
There
Yeah.
you go. We'll have to.
Absolutely.
What about you? Where's your favorite? Where's your spot besides
Oh
Twisted Tree,
boy!
of course?
You know, you name one of them. Louis on Demand.
Yeah, love that.
I like. These are the ones I'm high on right now. I like Little
Changes,
Fox.
right?
Little Fox.
I haven't been yet.
Tremendous.
Okay.
And then I like Pepe's Apartment too.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Those are my hot spots. I mean, I got my places on the hill.
Yeah.
Because I live in the neighborhood and whatnot. But those are kind of my go-tos right now.
Okay.
But you know, we're so fortunate. We really are.
Right? I mean,
St.
gosh,
Louis
like,
is
you
such
could-
a tremendous culinary experience.
Yeah.
I mean, it's outstanding. It really is,
Yeah.
and you guys are a big part of that.
Yeah, I mean, it's just I mean, shoot, I like on Mondays you go sit at the bar at Cyber's Gravel, have a beer or two, and hang out with Danny. You know, Ashley and I will do that sometimes and sit at the bar. You know, have your Cyber's chicken wrap or whatever. You know, so but yeah, there's so many great places and so many great little pockets of areas that are awesome. So.
You mentioned never get comfortable.
Right.
Would you ever open up your own place?
I would if the setting's right and everything, but I'm
And
gonna.
what would it be? What kind of restaurant would it be?
It depends on what day, what hour you ask me.
Oh, yeah?
You know,
Would it be Italian? Would it be a
it's
steakhouse? Would it be
It would most likely, if I were to ever
American
do something,
fare, high-end American?
it would probably be Italian.
Yeah.
I'd go back to my roots and
Sure.
stuff. But hopefully, like I said, I'm in a good position, and I think where I'm at and with this group will probably, open. I know we have a couple more concepts up, and so
Sure.
I'll probably hopefully get to do that someday with them. And
Yeah.
and if not, I think. I always say a cool retirement job for me. Two things that I think would be awesome on a retirement job. One, like a 40-seat, like awesome, do some like really nice coal-fired, like New York style pizza, and then just a couple pastas, not too many seats, 40, 50 seats,
Yeah.
and just kind of retirement job, right? Just have fun. And so when you sell out, whatever. You're like, hey, we made this much today. This is what we're selling. And then the other thing I think of, like if you go crazy retirement and crazy whatever, I think it'd be so much fun to have like one of those places like, say if you like driving boats, right? Get somebody, move down to Florida, have somebody have a boat. They go out and catch all the fish, bring it back to my restaurant. As they're showering up, I cook a bunch of fish. I think that would be awesome. I hear of places that are like that.
Sure.
I think that'd be a lot of fun. Just
Well,
as
there's
a
guys that
retirement,
do
like,
that,
yeah, just living the life, like, just
be a beach
once
bum.
the kids get
You
older.
could be a
Once
beach
the kids
bum
get older.
slash
And you're
chef.
like, yeah, exactly. Still able to cook a little bit when you want, how you want, and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, it'd be fun. So.
Next question. Who do you think has had the most amount of influence on you coming up through the ranks with all of your experiences in the restaurant business? You can name two.
Well, I mean,
If you can't just name one.
like there's so many people that like and not even
Helped
like,
you along the
yeah,
way.
I don't even know that I'm like, oh my gosh, like I don't know, like if I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm like successful. Like I still think it's crazy when people are like, oh, like you're the best chef in St. Louis. I'm like, I don't know about that. Like there's so many great chefs, and I'm like, I'm just very fortunate to even be like mentioned and be part of that and part of any of those kind
Well,
of
you're
things.
definitely an up and comer guy. You've basically arrived. We've had a couple of Hall of Famers on
Yeah.
the show.
Yeah.
Dominic Galati of Dominic's, Tony
Amazing.
Bomarito
Yeah, two
of Tony's
amazing
fame.
people. Yeah. But there's
But
guys.
you're
that-
the future. You're the future.
well, thank you. I try to. I hopefully, and we'll keep
Yeah.
rocking and rolling. And there's guys though that like I don't even really know the guy. I've met him a couple times, but there's guys like Gerard Kraft that when he came,
Right.
Gerard Kraft and Josh Galliano and Kevin, they all did these things. Kevin Nash, by the way,
Yeah.
they all did these things that like. They made cooking like fun and cool and made it to like we're like made St. Louis on the map. Like, you still had Stevie K and you still
Yeah.
had Dominic and you still had Bomarito. Well, we had some like those are, but they were started bringing in kind of the new school of like how you start doing these like in dining, like, Peacemaker is like so laid back, but it's such a good, like also kind of high end. Like it's crazy like that
Yeah,
they brought in
yeah.
like something where it's great food, the way that they have it. But then he has Sydney Street that's, still pretty high end but
Mm-hmm.
just doing different things that you never really see in the tasting menus. And so those type of things that like, I kind of looked up to those guys. Like
Sure.
I didn't even know them at the time. Right. And I
Yeah.
just kind of looked up that like, hey, they brought this cool cooking, but the two people, I mean, it's pretty white and black and easy. I mean, I could say Frank Kane is an absolute saint, like one of the most amazing people I've ever met in my life, but, and for giving me an opportunity cooking, but then
Yeah.
obviously I wouldn't be where I'm at today without Stevie K and then Jim Schutte is again who like his thing is like it's just so funny because he knows when and how to motivate me and how to do things and how to like and he always like his big thing is always like we're just getting started and you're just like dude I don't know where we're gonna end up like but just like and so guys like him too are just but along the way like Tracy Stamper I wouldn't be where I'm at today.
Tracy, the best.
She just pushes me every day sometimes like too much and I think we push
Sometimes
each
I'll
other.
go in there and I know she's just bartending for fun.
Yeah,
at night,
exactly. You're just like, why are
But
you like
I'll
you
tell you what,
just
but
workaholic?
She sees me walking in. She knows my boom.
Absolutely.
It's there before I get to the bar.
Best of the best, right?
Yeah, she's just great.
She wears
yeah.
so many hats. She's our marketing manager,
Marketing.
and again, she's kind of helped me.
Does a lot with St. Baldrick's.
Yeah. I mean, does a lot with St. Baldrick's, St. Patty's Day. I mean,
Yeah.
all that stuff when it's Cybergs, whether it's Twisted Tree, Twisted Tavern, Cybergs. I mean, just all of it. And she does a lot of it, and she's an absolute workaholic. I don't think I'd be, where, and then again, we just have such a good team. My kitchen crew, my guys that are shoot, they've helped me move before. Like,
Yeah,
you know,
right.
I mean, like guys that, you know, like I said, like Daniel and Rolando and Pony and Ozzy, like all those guys, I mean, they would literally, they mess with me sometimes. Sometimes like they're like my little brothers
like
or
family.
something. You know, you want to like
Becomes
bash
like
heads
family.
again,
You know, the Cyborg boys.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
But,
Jim.
yeah,
You know, you got.
I mean, they just,
you know,
there's
it's
so
just-
many people along the way.
Yeah.
That, you know, it's just, but yeah. So I'm just fortunate that I'm around like a very talented group at this point, and they're kind of letting me roll, and they provide other opportunities for me, and I just want to make sure I try to deliver on them every time they give me an opportunity.
Well,
So,
you're definitely taking advantage of every opportunity you've ever had.
Yeah.
Coming up through the ranks, and I want to thank you for coming on the Supper Club.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, you bet.
Absolutely.
All right.
The Supper Club brought to you by Mercy, transforming the health of our communities. Kuna Food Service, a family-owned tradition since 1918. Lordo's Diamonds, your family jeweler for life. Pristine Design Build, boutique residential solutions for your home. Oliva on the Hill. And Fresta Limoncello. Keep sipping, my friends. Ackerman Toyota, the #1 St. Louis Toyota dealer in volume sales back-to-back years 2023 and 2024. Thank you, St. Louis.